I learned when I was very, very young, and I still really believe this. You can see the greatest actor do the greatest acting, but there is nothing more pleasurable than two actors and what happens between them. That's where the rhythm is, that's where the juice is, that's where you can create something special. Now, that's not to say an actor can do a great monologue and we go, wow, skillful, all the moves are there. But I don't revere it as much as seeing two actors hit a beautiful rhythm that creates something between them. And that's where you are. You're right in the middle of what they're doing together. And that is always the best thing for me.
Filmmaker Magazine presents Back to One with Peter Rinaldi.
Clive Owen is an actor. He sat down with me in cyberspace to talk about the work.
Do you have a typical way that you like to begin your preparation process when you get a new role?
Well, it starts with the first time you read a script. And I think, certainly with me, an awful lot of decisions are quite quick, especially if it's well written. If it's well written, the storytelling is really clear and what your part is doing within it is clear. That comes really fast to you. So there are things at that first reading that I think sustain all the way through. That very first reading, the instinct, the appetite to want to do it. Why do I want to do it? Well, and often it's to do with, how good the writing is. Then I read it again and again and again. Before accepting, before talking to anybody, I read it quite a few times. And I get more of a sense of it. I soak it up a bit. And then I'll talk to whoever's directing and make sure that we're on the same page. Again, usually if the writing's good, it's quite clear. And sometimes you don't need big, long, in-depth discussions because the writing's really good. It's clear. The storytelling is there. And then from that point on, it all depends on different amounts of preparation for different scripts and different parts. Obviously, I'm English, I play a lot of American, so accent is a big one. First thing, start working on an accent. I work with a couple of really top dialect coaches, and the way you usually do it, you find a voice that's in the accent that you want, you listen to a few, you hone in on one, you start to work, you start to use that as your template, and then you begin that work. And that work can be a lot. For me, it can be a lot. It's a lot of sessions before you're anywhere near a set and sort of getting on top of it, just so you can be free. And then it's really about what this, for me, some scripts don't require massive preparation and some do. And that varies script to script, job to job. But that's usually how I begin to sort of, move it.
There's a video of you online talking to another actor, and she says to you that for her series that she's on, sometimes she'll get the script a couple of days before they have to shoot. And you sounded horrified at this.
It's my nightmare. Yeah.
And expressed like needing a lot of time. What do you do with that time?
Actors are all different, and I know guys that can sit in the car on the way to work and learn their lines for the scene. That terrifies me. I have nightmares about this. I have the classic. I used to hear about this actor's nightmare that you're being thrown onto stage and not knowing your lines, and thought, oh, so actory. And then I started to get it. And I've had it plenty of times now. And it's really anxiety making. You're thrown on, you're going to do a Shakespeare play and you haven't put the work in and you don't know the lines and you're about to go on. And I wake up in a state. Yeah. For me, it's absolutely crucial, and I cannot even the simplest dialogue, 2 lines or something, in a scene. If I can sit with it for a while, I'm a better actor. I don't know what happens. But there's a digestion that goes on. There's an absorbing, and it means that the line comes out differently with it just changes rather than if you go, there you go, Clive, can you say that line? To be in an environment where people like a director, which I've heard about. I'm trying to think if it's ever happened to me where they shout a line out for you to say. I'm like, that's now I fall apart. I'm a rubbish actor under those circumstances. When I did, say, for instance, the movie of the play Closer, which was very close to me because I did the original play playing the other part. Mm-hmm. I knew the piece of writing really, really well. Mike Nichols got the four of us together, and we sat around talking, not necessarily like working the script. We'd read a scene and then talk around the scene, things that came up, ideas, thoughts, and then we had quite a decent period of time where we all went away before we came back to shoot. And he always said that was his ideal way to work. And again, it's something to do with you're going about your day, you're making a cup of tea, but you're thinking and you're absorbing and you find there is something going on, even if it's not right in the foreground. And I'm just somebody who's much, much better the longer. I am one of those actors that if I know there's a rewrite coming, I will just pester every day. Is it ready? Is it ready? I need it. Because the sooner I get it, the better I am.
Yeah. Is it like a marination that happens, right? If it's meat, if you're marinating meat, you're letting it sit in that and it's absorbing the juices. You need that stuff to settle into like the unconscious or something, right?
Well, it's like you talk to any actor who's done, I mean, obviously if you've done theatre, if you are always prepared because you're not going to walk out on a stage not prepared. That is not going to happen. You have to be prepared. And preparation for me in film is that marination, that absorbing so much that you can then be free because you're so on top of it. You're not reaching for it. I'm not reaching for a line or I'm not going into something thinking, what do we say? Now, there are no rules. I've seen actors walk on, half know their lines, and be brilliant on film. Yeah. Absolutely brilliant. They're searching for it because they're really searching for it.
Yeah.
And that's the way they do it. I can't work like that. I have to. You would not believe the amount of times that I go over and over scenes and scripts.
But it's interesting because you did say also that it is true that you can over rehearse though for a film. And so that's different though, right? So that means that you want to be prepared, but there is a spontaneity that you still need. Is that correct?
No, for sure. You shouldn't over rehearse. You shouldn't. I don't think you shouldn't hit. There is tensions within scenes that are really important. And if you've overdone it and you've overworked it and you've got a rhythm that you're very set in, it's not going to be particularly alive. Now, you can prepare on your own, go over and over and over it, but the minute you engage with another actor, it's going to make things happen that are different. But you are prepared. And because you've spent that time, you can kind of go anywhere and move anywhere and it's alive. I agree. If you're doing, say, some intense scene in a movie, you go over and over that and try and hit that, you burn out. You kind of like, you need to hold something back for when you're actually doing it.
Yeah. Is there something that as a young actor you thought was important to your process that is absolutely no longer important at all?
Good question. No.
What do you think that is? I mean, you've obviously grown as an actor, but the process hasn't changed.
It was a slightly flipped response, but to be honest with you, I think what I thought when I first started acting, I held on to this belief that if I was truthful, whatever that is for me, it would be really powerful and important, and whatever goes on. And I've kept that through my career. Whatever happens, all the, the different, journeys that you go on, the different paths, and sometimes it can be very difficult, sometimes it's very easy. But if you sit and aim for that, it's a power. It's something that is indisputable to me. Now, of course, I've learned skills, and that's ever developing. As an actor, the crazy thing is, however much you do, however much you've experienced. Of course, you then have a backlog of history, so that you're walking into environments and you're kind of like, you've done enough to sort of, there are certain things that you can do that can help, the situation. But every time you do a project, you can be bad. Yeah. You can be a great actor and be bad. That's just like, that is it. So every time you step out, it's scary and it's new and it's like you're back at that place. It's never, experience doesn't mean you're always going to be okay. I think that, yeah. And most actors will say that.
Yeah.
The first week on a set, I hate, because I'm finding my feet, I'm finding my way with the crew, I'm finding my equilibrium, and I always wish I could go back and do the first few days again. Once I feel, and I sort of, everything starts to sort of sit together.
Speaking of that, is there an ideal environment on a set for you?
First thing I think of when you ask that question is Steven Soderbergh. Steven Soderbergh, his sets are like hallowed environments. They're like churches. You go in, it's quiet, it's concentrated, there'll be no chit chat, there'll be nobody. From the minute you step onto that set, there is a focus about what everyone's there to do. And it's incredibly concentrated, and it's heaven. It's heaven, because that, I always feel this. Sometimes, especially now, because, life's changed so much and everyone's got a mobile phone and all the ADs need to communicate by phone. But the amount of times you'll be on a set and you'll see out the corner of your eye someone doing, and it's probably related to the work. I'm not saying it's not, but it's hard. It's hard to focus. It's hard to concentrate. On Steven Soderbergh sets, it's so, you literally walk on, it's super quiet. And you begin and you start to work the scene, and that focus never lifts. And I absolutely adore that.
Do you know if he specifically creates that, told everyone this is what we need, or it's a top-down thing that he's like that and everyone just follows?
It's exactly that. It's a top-down thing. Yeah. It's exactly that, because, and Stephen, leads from the front. He operates. He's sort of right. He's right in the thick of a day shooting. He's not like he works really, really hard physically as well as that. But it comes from him, and he sets the tone, and he's got a crew that know him. So they know probably what he likes. But there are no monitors. There's no chairs.
That's the other thing.
Outside of the set, of people sitting and checking it out and talking. And that's not. It's only what goes on in front of the camera. And I adored working with him.
In the same way, are there ideal characteristics of a director that you can describe that work best for you?
Well, I certainly like to collaborate before we get on to a set. I like to have done all the talking before we get to a set. I don't think that's the time to be discovering anything. I think we need to be clear about what we're going in. Again, that's to do with me wanting to prepare, wanting to be ready, wanting to, be offering up the right things. I don't want that to happen on the day and then start to discuss what, what the scene's about. I want those discussions already. What I love is a real clarity about what the director wants. I think I'm a good director's actor. If I sign on to a film, it's because I like and trust the director, and I want to give him what he wants. I'm not there to, I want to know his vision. I want to know how he sees it. I'll often talk through most of the scenes just to get an idea, just to hear them talk about it. What are they trying to achieve? What do they want? That helps me enormously be able to do what I'm doing. But I like all of those things. It's funny because when you were talking about, talking with actors, and directors don't know how to talk with actors, I have a slightly unusual take, is that very often when people say they're a great actor's director, it can mean that they talk a lot. I feel that the big part of filmmaking is also very practical. It's about how things are captured. And some of the best directors that I've worked with don't talk too much about what, you're doing. They cast you for a reason. In fact, when I did Gosford Park, which had an incredible cast.
And the ultimate actor's director, right?
But he stands up at the beginning and he goes, I don't want anyone coming to me to talk about their part. You all know why you're
here. That's why he's the ultimate, right? Did he give you any direction?
Well, that was funny on that movie because there was one scene, I don't want to give people, some people might not have seen the film, but there was one scene where, some people are talking about the murder that's gone on, and I stop them and interject to say, excuse me, what were you saying there? And da-da-da. It was this huge ensemble cast, and I went onto the set and said, I don't think I should say anything. I think you should just see me hearing. And he ripped me in a very nice way for the rest of the movie, going, okay, but I've got the biggest ensemble cast, and Clive wants to cut his lines in the first scene that he should. And he kept ribbing me, but then he started to work me into scenes, having a little cup of tea, but not saying anything, just listening. He ran with it a little bit.
Wow.
But that was, but he said one of the best lines I've ever heard on a film set. He puts those big group scenes together, and it's like music. It's like watching somebody compose. When we did Gosford Park, it was shot in two halves, the upstairs half and the downstairs half. And we all got a message before we started the downstairs part, which I was part of, saying he wanted you to come in every single day, go into the works, but you might not be used, and you might be released at lunchtime.
Wow.
Because he wanted the freedom to suddenly do one of those big, scenes that just develop. And sure enough, the odd day, you call one by one. Now, Clive, let's get Derek Jacobi chasing a dog through the middle of it, and let's go there and let's go there. And he puts it together like music, like this ever-developing thing. And then if he goes, okay, we're going for the first take. If you know what you're doing, we won't notice you. If you don't, we will.
Yes. Yes. Oh, that's amazing. That's amazing. And so, all right, last ideal question. And I don't need specifics here. Think of the best co-star you've ever had. I don't want to know who it is.
Okay.
But describe why they were the best for you.
Freedom and wanting to play and open.
Was there ever a time that you struggled with somebody, but at the end you realized they made you better?
No, I've struggled with people and decided I don't want to do that again. But not maybe. I mean, listen, there are ways. There are all kinds of ways that are doing it, and some people are really, really strong, great performers, but kind of insulated, like they know what they're doing, and it's not hard. It's hard to engage with.
Yeah.
And then you meet other actors who are really great, and they're open, and the play and the rhythm. I learned when I was very, very young, probably when I was, studying theatre. And I still really believe this. You can see the greatest actor do the greatest acting, but there is nothing more pleasurable than two actors and what happens between them. That's where the rhythm is, that's where the juice is, that's where you can create something special. Now, that's not to say an actor can do a great monologue and we go, wow, skillful, all the moves are there. But I don't revere it as much as seeing two actors hit a beautiful rhythm that creates something between them, and that's where you are. You're right in the middle of what they're doing together, and that is always the best thing for me.
Yes, I agree. It's fascinating to me, and you've talked about this dozens of times, but it's fascinating that when Scott Frank called you for this series, where he wanted you to play Sam Spade, behind you is as you tell it, is a poster of the Maltese Falcon. And then what you did on the set was you had recordings of Bogart saying his lines in movies that you used to connect and drop yourself in. Yet, what's fascinating about this, I mean, all that's fascinating and fun, But what's fascinating is when I saw it, I mean, there is no imitation.
No,
it's not an imitation, and it's not even an homage.
No.
But so what were you needing that for, and how did that work for you? His lines.
So, I mean, I'm a huge Bogart fan, huge. So, you know, I get that call about that, and I did. I took a picture of the poster and said, "Scott, you come to the right guy. I'm like crazy about this." So we're shooting these you know, noir is a very difficult thing, I think, to keep doing because we feel we've seen it all. If you do all the classic tropes, you just sort of very quickly you're on the back foot because you go, "I know what this is. Oh, it's noir. It's the smoke. It's the, you know, the this, the that." And so he did a very clever thing by throwing it into, you know, a different environment, early 60s, south of France. Now, I am there playing the guy that comes from the 40s and the hard-boiled classic detective who's now getting older and living in the south of France. But I need to root it for me in that. I'm surrounded by French actors. I'm not surrounded by people with American accents. And also, Scott, I had this amazing dinner with him before we started, and I said, "Look, don't freak out, but I'm really honing in on Bogart and his voice. Not because I want to do, it's not going to be a bad impersonation, but for rhythm, for speed, for, you know, and he said, "That's crazy because as I write this project," and he's similar to me, we both love the genre, we both love Bogart, he said, I can't sign off on a scene until I've heard Bogart in my head say the lines. Because of the rhythm, because of the thing. Now, so I started digging into Bogart, and listen, I'm you know, I'll be upfront about it. It's a joy. I chose it as what a great thing to be able to do for a while. So, because I always use audio if I'm doing an accent, I've always got something in my ear to keep me in the right accent. I got Bobby, my assistant, to lift out just Bogey's dialogue from the Maltese Falcon in Casablanca and put it all together, line. So not the responses, not just Bogart. So I could just rip through, and it's crazy. Like if I told you the amount of minutes, I think it's like, I'd have to go back and look, but it might be 20 minutes if that in Casablanca. Wow. Which you think he's all over that movie. Yeah. You think he doesn't stop talking. But and so I cut it all together just to listen, and I, after listening and working on it a bit, I called Scott and I said, and Scott, I was, you know, blessed because his rhythms, like he nailed the rhythms of that period, that genre, and that. And what Bogart does, which is then what I was trying to achieve, is he rips really fast through a lot of dialogue. You think he's laconic and on the back foot, yeah. But actually he rips. He is like so nimble and like flies through speeches like it's nothing. Like when he's got a lot to say, he does not hang about. And in some ways that is the genre. You don't see people milking their emotions or trying to let you into, you know, it's all about dialogue and ripping it and letting the rhythm work. And so if I got, and Scott wrote me some great riffs in it, and I worked like crazy to make it rip out and make it look as easy as possible, because that's when it works great. So I'm not chewing it. I'm not like, oh, I'm really working. I just want to fly through it and make it look like it's just nothing, but it is actually a lot of work.
You're at a place now where I imagine that people are sending you scripts, they're offering you roles, and then so you're turning down things mainly. So when something like The Murder at the End of the World comes, and you're not necessarily the main character in that, a big juicy role, but you're not the main character, what makes you say yes to something like that?
Well, that was to do with those guys, to do with Brit and Zell, because you know, I've really enjoyed DOA, and I feel that they're very fresh, alive filmmakers. They don't play by the same rules as everyone else in a weird way, and they're super imaginative and they're bold in the way they attack things. And that was all about really, you know, liking the premise, thinking that the story and that felt like it was very on something that was very present And, you know, the thing that's beautiful about their work is that often it's not just the sort of narrative of where you begin and where you end, it's the journey getting there. You can drift off and have like it's not all about let's get to an end point. It sort of drifts and goes around. So you're watching and you're going, what? Like you're in these weird states sometimes of like, what's this? Where are we now? And I love that kind of like that they're the way that they do that. And I, you know, spoke to them, we got on great, and we had some epic Zooms talking about it all through. And I'm quite, no matter what the thing is, I'm quite a logic monster. So if things don't track, it bothers me.
Mm-hmm.
I'm very logical, and I go, you know, I've read, and some of them are by really highly revered writers, where you go from scene to scene, and it's kind of a cheat because it doesn't really track, but it's cute and it reads well, but it doesn't really. I go, that reads well. I don't know how to act that.
Yeah.
Because I don't know how to get from there to there to there to there.
Right.
And so often on a script, I will like be very logical before we begin about how does that go to that.
Yeah.
I'm always like that. That's how I begin. And we had lots and lots of, you know, Zooms, and I had a great time working with them. I think they're very cool.
Do you speak up when there's a let's just say there's a motion that you have to do a blocking that doesn't make sense? Are you the kind of actor that steps up and stops everything and says, this doesn't make sense here? I mean, even if you trust the director, amazing relationship with that person, are you the kind of person that speaks up?
Yeah. If something is being made difficult to do, or, and I won't give you the specific example, but if you're playing something that's based on something real and you walk on and you go, but this isn't how it was, then I will go, no, it's got to be like, so I do. If I think it's blocking or I think it's not helping what the scene is, I'm not an actor who likes to take control. I don't, you know, if I want to direct, I go off and direct something. Right. I'm not there to direct it. I don't, you know, but as you say, if it's something that feels like it's not helping the scene or it's making it difficult, I'll say that for sure.
Do you think all actors should do that? Don't you think actors know more than anyone except the writer? You know, or maybe as much as the writer, because they've lived with this person, they've read the script hundreds of times.
No, for sure. But, you know, let's be brutal about it. It's hard if you haven't got status to stand there and start telling a director that you think's this or you think, you know, a cool director listens to everybody and they'll take what they, you know, believe and what they want from it, and they won't take the stuff they don't want, and they're open to it and they're cool. Not all directors are. And if you haven't got the status, you know, it's hard to start because you look, oh, who's that guy? You know, it's easier if you're playing a lead part of something, but, you know, so it's not straightforward. It's not easy, but a good director will listen to actors.
Yes. This is a crazy question. I don't know why I think I must be in a weird place right now. When you look at how fucked we are as a species, does that make you more happy or less happy that you're spending your life in the arts? And I'm really asking this. I mean, when you look at how bad things are, or when you get down about literally life, does it make you happy that you're actually in something that transforms lives like this actually does? Or do you think I need to do something like be a doctor or something, or go off and and help this? Or is this actually the biggest help you can do right now?
Well, that's a difficult question for me because I can't do anything else and never wanted to do anything else.
Yeah.
But that's the truth. I can't do anything else. You know, people say to me, oh, what would you have done if you hadn't been an actor? That question stumps me. I go, I have no idea, because it's the only thing that as soon as I found it, I went, that's what I want to do. And it's the only thing I feel I was any good at. So, I've always been, when I started, the idea of having a career in it was huge. Like, it blew my mind that might be possible. So the idea that I've had the life and career I have, I'm grateful every day. I feel so lucky that it panned out, because there wasn't really an alternative. I don't know what else. Now, I suppose there could be an argument, when I was young, there was a very common thing about you need a backup profession. You need to be able to fall back onto something else. So many actors that I've met didn't have that. And that could be, it had to work. It just had to.
When your team sends you a script, or somebody sends you, like Scott Frank sends you a script, somebody, Soderbergh says, I'm thinking about doing this TV show. When somebody sends you something and there it is, and you open that page, what are you looking for real? Like, what is it that you really want to do at this point?
You don't know until you've read it and you go, I want to do that. Soderbergh did call me up. I was on the trailer and he sent me the first episode of the Knick. I'm going to do this TV show. I wasn't thinking of doing TV. I hadn't done TV for a long time at that point. And I had some time in the trailer and I started it. And I finished it. And I called him straight back. And I went, I'm in. Because every now and again you read a piece and it engages the stuff that you remember while you're doing it, where you started, the appetite, the energy, it's almost a physical thing. You read it and you go, this is why I do it. Because the fireworks have gone off as you've read the thing and gone, oh, look at, oh, wow. And it reignites that passion, and it's very, very clear. That you get some scripts, reading the play closer for the first time. The play, which, they were going to workshop at the National. I remember where I was when I read that piece. I thought, what a piece of writing. Reading the Knick, like you have these moments where everything becomes alive, and it's super clear that if you can, you have to do it.
Clive Owen, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Back to One is a production of Filmmaker Magazine, which is a publication of The Gotham, formerly IFP. Listen to back episodes of this podcast at filmmakermagazine.com or wherever you get your podcasts.